Welcome back to the Voices of East Texas. I'm your host, Elena. Every once in a while, you sit down with someone whose story reminds you of just how resilient the human spirit can be. Today's guest is Shannon Starkey, a veteran, a mother, an advocate, and a survivor whose journey has taken her from military service in Afghanistan to some of the darkest moments of her life, and ultimately to a renewed sense of purpose. In this conversation, Shannon shares with us her experiences with trauma, addiction, incarceration, recovery, faith, and the work she does now to help veterans and families across East Texas. Her story is honest, sometimes difficult, but ultimately one of hope and redemption. This episode is titled, God Wasn't Done With Me Yet. Let's begin. Welcome to the Voices of East Texas. Today we're going to sit down with an amazing guest. Would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Shannon Starkey. I'm again, local of East Texas, Tyler specifically. Let's get started. How did you?
Yeah, let's start at the very beginning. Where did you grow up?
So I was a native of Texas. I was born in Mesquite, Parkland Hospital. And so as I grew up in Texas, my mom, the amazing woman that she was married 3 different times. Luckily, the third one stuck. But in between those, she was a single mom. She worked 3 jobs, and we were, kind of all over. So mostly like the Dallas area where we had family and they could help take care of us when my mom was out saving the world. And her third marriage, whenever she was a security officer at Dallas airport, she ended up marrying a man from Canada, still a great influence in my life. And his job was transferred to Atlanta, Georgia. So I was about 8 and my whole world just kind of turned like upside down. Mm-hmm. So we moved to a place called Noonan, Georgia, which is Alan Jackson's hometown. And I literally grew up on Chattahoochee. And that's where I first learned how to eat ranch with pizza. And so everything there from the time I was 8 almost to 17. And then the job change happened again. So we ended up moving back to Texas. And instead of Atlanta based, now we were Dallas based for my dad's job. And I was not happy about this. I mean, it was my senior year of high school. I was, up for scholarships and things for where I had to play volleyball. And I was amped to go, be on prom court. Like all these great things are happening as a young woman. And they're like, no, you can't live with your best friend. This is not going to happen. You're not getting married. It was tragic. So I was working at Red Lobster as a hostess. That was my first job when I was 15. So we transferred to Tyler and I was like, what is this? So when I started school, I was at Robert E. Lee, which is now, I think, not Legacy.
Yeah.
The other, is it Legacy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
right. It's like right across the street from the mall.
Yes.
Yeah. So Legacy.
And so there was no volleyball. Like it was like starting over, like in one of those Lifetime movies that you see. And I was like, this is ridiculous. So I did leave for 6 months. And unfortunately, my dad lost his job and we had family in Brownsboro. And I was like, this can't get any worse. So you're going from like a 6A school to a 5A school, now down to a 3A school, if I'm not mistaken. Like, and this is 2004. So we're getting back in the gap is how we put it. So I get to Brownsboro and I'm like, okay, after this tragic loss of this year of my life, I'm going straight back. So I turned 18 in February and I never knew you could have a high school, a middle school, and an elementary all on one like acre of land. Mm-hmm. Brownsboro has developed since then, but I also was highly entertained that my history class was in the boys' locker room. And it very much was a culture shock for me. And I was not in the business of staying. So fortunately for my parents, when I turned 18 and I was working still, I was driving from Brownsboro to Tyler to be at Red Lobster. So I filed my own taxes. They couldn't claim me as a kid anymore. So I was learning how to navigate life very quickly. I enrolled in Columbus State University back in Georgia, and I was like, hey, I need you to sign my FAFSA forms. And my mom was like, what are you doing? And then they found out when they were trying to file their taxes that they couldn't. So I was very rebellious in this phase of my life. So I went back to Georgia for a year after I graduated in May of '04 from Brownsboro. And I majored in criminal justice for a year. I joined AD and I learned very quickly that sorority life was, it was a whole concept of what the term party animal becomes. So I became my pledge class president. I was living my life. My boyfriend that I had been with since I was a sophomore, he played golf there. And so everything was kosher, right? Like my life was back on track. And that's not how it stayed. So I found out, my boyfriend was cheating, and it's just not a great month. And so we went on spring break, and then I found out my mom was sick, and it was one of those things that pulled at my heartstrings a lot more than wanting to do what I wanted to do.
Right.
So I forewent being in school. I withdrew from classes, and so I came home, and I was back in Tyler, and I was like, okay, well, what do I do with my life? So there was a place called Fat Cat's Louisiana Kitchen, and it was over here where Perry's Pizza is, like that French Quarter area.
Yeah.
Like where Electric Cowboy used to be. Good times. So I was still working. I had been training in serving at Red Lobster, where I was bored with corporate, and Darden Restaurants which also owns Olive Garden. I don't like roles. It was a big thing. They were like, "Hey, if you're going to do this, and move up and be a bartender," and I was like, "No, like I'm not going to do that." So I was living with a roommate, and so I started working at Fat Cats when it opened. And Cedric Fletcher was the owner. He's an amazing man. And I was there for a good year and a half, like up through my 20s, when I turned 20, and when Gadzooks was still in the mall. Like, I miss it. And people were like, what's Gadzooks? I'm like, if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. And then Forever 21 came around and bought it out. And so it became Gadzooks 21. So I was working in like hospitality, and I was also a store manager for Gadzooks in the mall, the original mall here in Tyler.
Wow.
And my life is just, it was good being young, right?
Yeah.
And we had Electric Cowboy, and we had like everything you can find to do to get in trouble. Entertain yourself. But it all revolved around very risque behavior, very not, I don't want to say drugs, but alcohol was a big play in the scene here.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to do.
Yes.
And so I was very much caught in the East Texas like trademark. And I was like, this isn't where I want to be.
The teenage boredom,
Yes.
the young adult boredom. Right. We have this freedom and we can do all these things. Right. Should we do them? Probably not.
No. And they don't, and no one explained the whole concept of like, you can bring your credit very quickly.
Yes.
So it was one of those things where I learned about my first credit card. I learned about, like I had my first wreck, and I was like, how, like life was happening. Yes. And I was prepared for some of it, but I would spend my money on just ridiculous things like, here, take my money. Or I would go on trips, and I learned about College Station. So I went down there to the Dixie Chicken, and I just had a really great group of friends. But my life was to me, it was boring. Like I felt very repetitive. And so I said, okay, I want to do something great. I'm going to be the first in my family to do something as a woman. Because I wasn't a Betty homemaker. I never wanted to get married. I had all of these like Beyonce was big at the time. So like independence was our motto. And I was so good at it. And my mom had gotten better, and I had rebuilt some relationships with my dad, my biological dad, from when I had been moved to Georgia. So I was in Fat Cats one day, and I was closing the bar, and I was in the office doing a drawer, and I see like these constant Army ads coming through. And I was like, well, that's exciting. So I looked into it, and I said, you know what? I'm going to go. Like, I'm going to go talk to a recruiter. I didn't say anything to anybody. I went, and I was like, okay. So I did. I jumped on that bandwagon, and I was like, I will be the first female in my family to be in the service. Because I come from a long line of like good boy clubs. Like my grandfather and my uncle was like all what the men can do. And we were very much in what we call the G.I. Jane era. And if you've never seen G.I. Jane, I highly recommend it. So it was like, women breaking these boundaries. And I was like, God, I could really do that. Now, that being said, trying to like what we call weight and tape, meaning you have to be a certain weight at a certain height. and your body measurements. Like you have to have one or the other. Like your measurements work or your weight works. And of course, my weight, I always struggled with as a kid, but I had to go on this very like eggs, tuna, water. That was my whole no alcohol, no like partying, and you had to go out and like run. So, like recruiters,
PT.
yes, exactly. It was not my forte. So I did eventually, I completed MEPS, which is in Shreveport, and you do like a duck walk and you do all these things. And I will never forget the night before I went to MEPS, I signed an 8-year contract. So I was going Army. And I remember the girl that I was roomed with, who is still a very good friend to me. Her name is Angela Kay. I was like, hey, I have this very weird request. So we take hemorrhoid cream and we do a full body, like almost like spray tan. And I'm wrapped in cellophane. And that's how you shrink your body fat, right? I didn't know this. My recruiter's like, you need to do this. Do not drink any water. Don't do anything for the next 8 hours. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Well, lo and behold, I made it 2 inches below tape because I wasn't going to make my weight, even though, because I mean, I was 5'9". The Army requirements for my age group, which is like 18 to 24 at the time, was like 163 pounds. I'm like, I'm not a Nicole Richie. I will never be able to be that, nor was it healthy.
Yes.
So it's not a tangible weight in such a short time. So my measurements were what I had to. And like, I'm a full figured person.
Yeah.
Like I had hips and things. And I was like, how is this realistic? But we made it. So that is how I met a really good friend that night. And she was like, she had no hesitation. She was like, yeah, cool. Like, we had weird interactions. But so a couple months later in December of 2006, I shipped out into Fort Jackson, South Carolina. We call it Relax in Jackson. That's where I spent doing my basic. The crazy part was my dad knew about it, my biological dad. He was living in Athens at the time. And I never told my mom. I never told a lot of people. My employers knew. I gave my apartment the notice, because I was going technically active duty. And, you get this one phone call to make, like let someone know you're there. My dad knew where I was going. And I called my mom, and you have drill sergeants in the back just using all types of language because that's their motivator.
Yes.
During this phase of the military. And
they break you to rebuild you.
Oh, they do. And so I call, and my mom, I was like, hey, Mom, it's me. She's like, where are you? Why is it so loud, Elizabeth? Like my middle name. And I was like, well, I just want to let you know I joined the Army. I'll be done in 9 weeks. I love you. And all you hear is like, a good friend now, her name is Drill Sergeant Alexis, and she's got this Jamaican accent. She's like, Mitchell, get off the phone. You're not dead. And my mom was like, this is not funny. Like, have you been drinking? And I'm like, I'll see you in 9 weeks. So that's how I broke it to my mom.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So it was, it's always an entertaining. There's never a dull moment. So I go through the concept, we did all the things. I learned a lot very quickly about what mental breakdown looks like, what being hungry for something in life really can look like, and how unfortunate it is that we look at days as almost impossible to face because of all the tasks like we put in front of ourselves. And in these moments, I can't tell you how much I reflect and I still enjoy being like, I came out skinnier because I didn't know how to shut up. Like I was always the funny one. And everybody always had to push in what we call the front lean and rest position. That's the push up, and so I don't know. I learned a lot of great things. There were some unfortunate things that did happen while in basic. And when I was done, we go to what I like to call Army College. So my parents have come, we've graduated basic, and I went to Fort Horton, Georgia to be satellites and communications. And it was good. I met a lot of great people. I learned you don't drive, but you do a lot of like partying off base once you come with what they call phase. Yeah. So you have to learn, the soldier's creed. You have to do all these things. And that was when you still had drill sergeants that were in your barracks and you had a system of structure. These days it's completely different, very. They have what they call, I think it's a safety card. So if somebody feels mentally or emotionally and so very different military from when I started. And so I completed it. went on my first active duty station, did all the things, and I was bored. Satellites and communications are basically your radio people. So like in the movies, you see people that carry the radio cast, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't want to do this. This is not what I signed up for. So they were like, well, you can reclass. Like you can, what do you want to do? And they're like, we have a need for MPs, like military police. Because a lot of things were kicking off in Afghanistan, and especially like with the war on terrorism that had, obviously started in 2001. We were now like in all types of provinces across the Middle East. And I said, okay. So lo and behold, me and Angela Kay were back again. And we go through school. We ended up in Austin. I actually got my first tattoo there on 6th Street. Never do it while you're inebriated. But so it was one of the best switches I could have done. And we ended up shipping out in 2009. I had just actually gotten married. I was married for about 2 weeks before I left. And that was another thing my mom was not happy about. Called from the JP. I was like, hey, I'm getting married. And she's like, this has got to stop happening. So we were actually with the 136th here out of Tyler, which is also the reserve unit, the new one on 31. And it was a very interesting deployment, to say the least. As a female, you encounter a lot of prejudice. You encounter a lot of, second choice, second voice, second choice stigmas.
Mm-hmm.
And you just do what you're told and shut up. Like I felt like a housemaker almost in a uniform, but I
Yeah.
was still very proud of what we were doing. So we get what we call boots on the ground. We've gone through like Shannon, Ireland. We've gone through all, Kuwait. We get there, we're acclimating, and lo and behold, we knew we were doing detainee operations. So that includes like you're working in a prison where they have, put certain captures is what we call them, or detainees, and the scope of what Bagram looked like. So Bagram was an Air Force base that is now been deserted. I believe it was 2014.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone out, like pulled everybody out. I was like, my files are still there. Great. So there was a makeshift prison called K-Span. It was basically a Russian air hangar that was turned into this makeshift prison. And it had many hands in it before us. And we had a Navy unit that was attached. And it was a great experience. Now, then, your exposure to certain things. Like I was a cell guard. We did missions. We did transfers. There's a lot of exposure to the combat side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't a mom at this time. Like I said, I'd only been married 2 weeks. I was like, ride or die, let's go.
The adrenaline is pumping.
It was.
We're young. We're ready.
Yeah. It's and you have a lot of young soldiers, or what we call like the E4 mafia, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these are like your junior enlisted is what they're called, and you have this mentality of like, what can I do to stand out? And mine was just, I don't want to stand out. I just want to be put on really cool things to do.
Yeah.
So sexual harassment was a part of your job.
Yeah.
Detainees on that side of the world, their culture is very different. Obviously, it's a Muslim country. Yep. They have their place for women. Mm-hmm. They have their place, how they feel about Americans and how they feel about American women that are in charge.
Yeah.
So you're working in this prison, which probably a cell would be about the size of this room that would host or house.
It's about a 10 by 10 or 12 by 12.
So you would have anywhere from 15 to 20 detainees that were all males. Mm-hmm. Like there's no women in this prison, like as in detainees or captives. And you're responsible, just like you would in the TDCJ system or a prison system. And so this is what we did for 12 hours. Like you gave them their meals. There were certain things, you did call for them to be taken to the doctor or interrogations and things like that. And the exposure to what links that they were given, American Red Cross was there a lot. So there were things, and of course there was already like an Abu Ghraib thing happening, but without, putting too much on the table, I didn't leave there without my own experiences that I would not completely understand or process until years later. So it was successful. We did the things. We got home. And I was like, okay, let's do round two. Like I was ready to go back, right? I like found my niche. I'm good at what I do. I've made a lot of connections. I've gotten in trouble. um, but one of the biggest things that people don't know about military culture is alcohol and drugs are a big part of the culture. Mm-hmm. And I don't say that to be condescending. I don't say that to bash, but it's just what it is. Just like
self-medicating is a huge deal and a huge thing in military culture.
We did, and the exposure to other cultures there, like yes, Canadians, French, etc. There was never a lack of on base, and how we brought those things in. I'll tell you, the creative ways. Someone got something to me was the Equate bottles of like brown mouthwash. We did that, and then a friend of mine who is stateside, she ended up, and I just say this because she was able to put a certain clear alcohol in a female productive bottling for your douches, right?
Yeah, so yes, yeah.
And so we have very collective ways of how we, but what I didn't understand is that's when an addiction was forming.
Yeah.
Because it was a calming, it was a soothing, because you don't really have a lot of mental health in those areas.
Nowadays, I think things have changed somewhat a little bit, but for the better. But I don't think that they're anywhere close to being able to handle the mental health issues that come with the traumatic experiences seen in combat zones.
I think the more unfortunate part that they did for reasons of, and we're in the business of winning wars.
Yes.
It is not winning hearts and minds.
No.
Okay. So if you said something, or if you have a feeling, or you wanted to talk about your emotions, you were more or less sent home, or you were put on like paper duty.
Yeah.
And in Afghanistan, it's such a beautiful place. And so we lived in what we call a fishbowl. So Bagram is surrounded by all these mountains. Mm-hmm. And there was never a lack of like rocketed or like still sirens going off, or so you start to become accustomed to these things. So we get home and things are, we do the yellow ribbon events, like all the things are good. And I didn't want to stay married. So I had this whole, I'm gonna let you know I'm leaving again. I don't want to do this, blah, blah. That is not how life happened. So we were out, and when I say we, I say me and a bunch of the people, other military, and we were just letting loose at one of the 4-wheeler parks here for July 4th weekend. And a really good friend of mine, who's like a sister still, her birthday as well. So we were just partaking way too much, and I got into a 4-wheeler accident, and I got brought to the hospital, and my whole world changed. And it wasn't like hey, you broke your back or something like this. It was, you really could have hurt your baby. And I was like, I don't think I'm sober enough for this yet. What? And so, of course, yes, I was married. But we didn't know where or who we were after so much had happened in our lives. And I was like, oh. So everything I had planned was done. Like, that's soldier, that woman warrior, all these things that I had known about myself and discovered through the military was on a complete pause. I didn't even know what it was going to look like.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting here like, I wanted kids, but not at 23. And I was blessed. We had a beautiful little girl named Madison. And in the in-between of pregnancy, that's when mask phase, is what I like to call it, started to happen. I was wearing these masks for mother, wife. I enrolled in Laterno because I needed something to keep me busy. I was in the National Guard, so I was still reporting and doing the things, but there was no like, who was Shannon? I was just so many other things to so many people. We had Madison in March of 2011. Me and my now ex-husband were just trying to figure life out. And unfortunately it didn't. So we divorced in 2015. We went our, separate ways. We co-parented. We did all the things. I was living in Longview, so that's another scope of East Texas that I got a huge taste of. And it's very different from Tyler. It's very different from any other place. So I finished with school. I would bring Madison with me to class. LaTourneau is an amazing university, and that it's Christian based. It really helped me succeed in finding some of my faith. And I only say some because I had a lot of anger with God because I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where my life was going. I was just following the steps of what I felt society was like. You can do this and still be an amazing woman. But you could never give me the military dream back. It was never going to happen. And if it did, it was going to come with a lot of sacrifice. So I said, okay, I finished school. I was actually working with Bath and Body Works on a corporate level. And so I stayed there doing retail in the Longview Mall. And I just couldn't continue to like do that. But then as I was growing and being a mom and watching my daughter, she attends a school district there close to Longview. And there was just something about the way that my mind was shifting. And I didn't understand like anxiety and the impatience and the things that I felt like I was provoking myself. And so my mom came and actually stayed with me for a while to be with Madison while I was working, with corporate, and you're put on salary, you're expected whenever they call you go.
Yeah.
So I got out of corporate. I started working with a DME company there in Longview. And after I finished my degree, I started my master's program with LaTourneau. And I started going out a lot more with girlfriends. And then that phase of drinking started. And it was like a constant numbing device. And I had been to the VA. I had been put on things because when I experienced my first anxiety attack, I had to pull over and like Madison's in the back seat. I felt like I was dying, but I had no idea what my body was going through. So someone tried to explain it to me. And of course, you can't tell me anything at this point because I've survived like so much. That my mind was under construction, but it wasn't ready to fully deal with the main plan of what was being built. And I was like, what does that even mean? So of course, the VA's way of doing things at this point in time, which they are, again, they're working on it with mental health, still a huge opportunity to grow. But females are very different. Female combat vets, I have learned, we are a powerful source of many things, but when we need help, we don't. As women, as mothers, we're like, nope, we'll fix it. It'll be fine. So I started to go out a lot more. My mom would like watch Madison, or when she wasn't with me and she was with her dad, that's all I would do. I'd go out, I'd go with the girls. Me and Applebee's had a great relationship. All of this pinned up like aggression and what we call now undiagnosed trauma. And also there was motherhood disassociation. So those two terms were very scary for me. And there was not a time that I didn't agree with it, but I also couldn't accept it. As with anything, I got better at hiding my problem. And I'm open about it because now the VA has, and doctors, and I've looked at the science of alcoholism is a disease.
Yeah.
It very much is. And I, for the past over 2017 to 2019, I was a great functioning alcoholic. And I just numbed. I would go out, I would do all the things. Like I was finding myself where I was working, which I won't disclose, but I was receiving awards for what I was doing. And I was like, this can't be right. But I had no moral compass at this point, except I was a great mom. I was paying the bills. I was showing up where I was needed. And that was it. But there was just a shell of a person. And so I got lost. But the further that I sank into a shell, the more like those demons from what had happened overseas starts to come. And I'm like,
they start to show their face.
Yeah. So night terrors became a very real thing.
Mm-hmm.
I had shot bottles everywhere. My mom, being the woman that she is, she did so many things to try to put me into rehab. And please don't do this. Like, you're going to end up killing yourself. And it runs in my family.
Yeah.
On both sides, unfortunately. There wasn't a day that I didn't feel like that guilt and shame, but I still couldn't quit at this point.
Was there someone in your life from the community or from your workplace or a friend who, not, your mom, because we all know as women, we don't like to listen to our moms. But was there someone in your life that stepped in from the community, from the outside,
that said, kind of, hold on, wait, let's talk about this?
So I had a friend for each side. I had an encouraging partner. And when I say partner, I mean like partner in crime. She was always there when I needed another drink or another shoulder or another place to like gripe about life is. But then I had like this ride or die who was still very active in my life. She was still active military. I really didn't want to associate with those that were on active duty again or deploying, and it wasn't me. So whenever she was in town, and she's actually my daughter's godmother, she would be the one to come pick me up. And she'd be like, it's enough. Or she would have to take my daughter to her dad because there were just times I couldn't resonate with life. And so then I didn't listen to this friend. I was jealous of it. I was like, you have like this whole life. You're going to like Africa, you're going to Cuba. Like, don't talk to me. And we literally would get into physical brawls. But that's like the love that you find between like a sisterhood in such a hard place when we were deployed. And when I say like she had my six, constantly, whenever there was any type of engagement. And there were things that were finally coming to the surface, and I had had enough. I eventually lost everything that I had worked for. And I lost my job. I lost my home. I had to move in with my parents when they were down in NAC. I lost my daughter to like supervise business. So I could continuously destroy my life. I was really good at it. And there is this false hope of after being in rehab. Like I completed rehab and I went to an amazing place called Warriors Heart in Vendera. And I thought I was going to get back on, with life and it'd be fine, but it wasn't. So COVID came and the fear of all of that and living with my parents was just way too much. So I had a service connected payment, meaning like I had a certain percentage that the VA was giving me for whatever physical, mental, psychological things. And that would all get pushed into buying alcohol, paying for my car. Like I would go out for hours at a time. My parents would be like, what I'll do you? Like, doesn't matter. And then I went to this even darker place of like suicidal ideations became a very real thing because I had already lost so much so quickly. Within a 9-month period, I was living with my parents again. I was tired of being a burden. I didn't figure there was any more help. This is where my life took another chapter change and I started having criminal activity. Anywhere from like stealing from my parents to I caught felony charges for certain things as well as misdemeanors. In the scope of 2019 going into 2020, I had already racked up a good enough amount to where I couldn't even pay the bond out anymore. My parents owned a certain percentage of a business where we lived on property. And I took advantage of that and was like, I'm going back to Georgia. You're never going to find me again. So I went like full military scope while under intoxication of like, there was never a moment I wasn't livered up.
Yeah.
So we did this, had a full plan. I ended up, like breaking and entering into their business. I took things never should have been taken. I did a lot of harm, not physical harm, but I destroyed a lot. And my parents were only trying to save me. So I was like, I'm done. So in December of 2020, I took a vehicle while my parents were at a Christmas party. I took off like the locator. I turned off all the stuff on my phone. I was very smart because I had gained a lot of knowledge while in the service. And I was very meticulous about changing license plates. Like I went down a full checklist because I was done with being where I was and who I was. That it wasn't who I was. And so I left. I was gone for 3 days. People would try to reach out to me. I would do like Facebook Lives in bathrooms. And then I would change like my SIM card. Like I had a whole plan. But there was something about not saying goodbye to my kid. So that brought me back to where she was. And her dad was just a very protective parent, as he should have been in the scope of like what I was walking through. So unfortunately, the state decided after everything, because I got caught, I ran. They were like, "You cannot outdrive us." And I was like, "Watch me and my Kia." So there was a lot of and sportage, by the way. But at this time, I had gained so much weight from alcoholism. I felt like the Fat and the Furious, as Gabriel Iglesias said. And so it's just one of those things. So long story short, I went before the judge. I spent about 15 months in county during COVID between Bragg County and Nacogdoches. And a good majority of that was spent in suicide set because I was a harm to myself. I didn't have a whole lot of capacity to listen to anything but like voices. And so still we're dealing with this undiagnosed trauma. We're dealing with like, just let it be done. The state picked up the charges that my parents wanted to drop. They processed those felonies, and I ended up getting 5 years in TDC or going to prison. So I served 3 of those in the correctional system, learned a lot. It's a whole different culture. And inside, though, there was an opportunity for us to create the first female veterans dorm in TDC. And so you have a lot of like minded people, women especially, that come into the system, but a lot of it is never identified. So we had this amazing man that was in what we call reentry, and he started going through identifying. So in about I had served a year, and the prison system in Texas is like, there is no AC. There are not kind things that happen, and that's for a reason. But the inhumanity and things that are sustained in there, sometimes I feel were worse than what I saw overseas. So we get to Gatesville. We are established at Mountain View. We're now the Patrick O'Daniel unit, which is also death row. And this becomes like a huge program for us to undertake. So it's still established. We did a lot of great things, and it helped me be guided towards what I do now. And that gave me purpose in finding one. So I got out in May of 2024. I made parole. I still had 2 years to serve, and my parents took me in. And so over this 3-year gap, of course, I've only had so much communication with my daughter. I tried to rebuild the relationships with my parents, and it almost didn't happen because of the destruction that I had done in so many people's lives. And so they did. They took me in under, like, of course, you're going to sign this contract. You're going to do this and this.
Yeah.
And so I was blessed. I found a lot of support. I found Can't Be, and Can't Be gave me a contact to the Andrew Center, and the Andrew Center led to an organization called MVPN, which is Military Veteran Peer Network. And I've helped serve on that continuously. It's been a saving grace. And I've had a lot of women, powerful women in this community that have been mentors, and they still are really good friends. And we moved up the levels in life. I finally got a chance. My first year was about my healing. But when you're getting out of a system and you're leaving with a record, there is such a huge stigma in East Texas. You can't find housing because people in the state of Texas, there's like a 7-year, like whenever you're trying to get an apartment or like housing, things like that, they see your record and they're like, we can't rent to you. So finding it was very employment, like that bachelor's degree, that's cute. It doesn't help you.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here like, what's next? Like, what am I supposed to do? I go apply for these jobs. I'm like, I'm a vet. I can do all the things. I have a degree, and like every door that kept closing. And I felt like I was right back in stage 1. So I'm sitting on almost 6.5 years of sobriety. I have now, obtained sitting and helping multiple organizations. I sit at tables and have conversations with people in this community that are so high up, and bring the exposure and like the taboo things that we don't talk about. So all to encompass and kind of come full circle with mental health, with alcoholism, with what we call being system impacted, meaning I can't tell you how many vets we have incarcerated. And so I work now with an organization called the Belief Center. They're out of Canton, and they have a program called Hearts for Heroes. And so Vita and Jerry McGregor came into the women's unit where I was, and they gave a class called Hearts for Heroes. And so they were driving from Canton up to Gatesville, and this was an 18-week class, and we completed it. through the months in TDC that I had left. And I got out and they were still by my side. They were like, hey, and so over these past 9 months, I've become the director for that program. And I actually now go back into prisons. And I was like, God, I'll never do this again. But it does. So now I go into Cofield and I work with male vets specifically in the area called P6. And so every Thursday, when it's accessible, because right now they're in what they call a lockdown, which is where they go through the prison and make sure everybody's within standards. And I get to share with these guys, what life is like when you do get out. And it's not as easy as people think it's going to be, even with the help and having a service connected payment and the work that I tell them that has to be done. And they're men. So it's kind of conflicting in some ways, but I'm grateful for the humility and the grounding that I get by being able to do. And working with Camp V for the time that I did gave me the ability to see what needs to be fixed and grown in like a nonprofit sector and what does thrive. But it also gave me the distinguishment that when we say veteran community, it's not just a vet, it's not just male or female. It is like the person, what is connected to them. And so my platform and advocacies for female veterans, especially, is because as women, we are connected as mothers, as wives, as business women, like all of these capes that we have. But we never stop to take care of ourselves. And I learned very quickly about boundaries and capacity, and the word no is one of my favorite. But I have a slogan, and I learned it. The more selfish I can be, the more selfless I can be. Because if I don't have the capacity to help serve in this type of community, especially like prisons and mental health, and another thing that we don't talk about is what's called MST, and it's military sexual trauma. And that is one thing that a lot of females and males have experienced. And that can be anything from when you were in the service to like a verbal assault of sexual type, or you physically were assaulted. And so I had my own experiences with that while I was overseas. And now that I've talked about a lot of witness trauma, like the things that really triggered, that made me, an alcoholic. And so I completed my parole as of May 1st. I'm done.
Congratulations.
Thanks. I did it. I no longer belong to the state of Texas. And then I have really great things happening to be off probation very soon. So I say all of this to say it's not impossible. And you can come from such a dark place of, one of the biggest things I reflect on is when people ask me, well, what was your driving force? Like, how did you even come out from, they're like, you went to prison? Like, what? You're so pretty. I'm like, I know, right? But inside, I promise you, I'm not looking for a girlfriend. And I love people's reactions when they hear it. They're like, Waylon, I was like, I've been on hard times. And we have a very custom language. Like we call it the gated community. So when people ask me, like, where have you been? I'm like, man, I went to a gated community. I had like my own chef, we had gardening. It was great. Definitely not how that forte goes, but some people don't know how to receive what you walk through in your story, right?
Yeah.
So I'm grateful. Like I work with shy moms. And so I get to work with single moms, and I get to experience now, I get to be human. And people are like, what does that even mean? Like, you are human. But you have to understand, I didn't process emotions. I have very small empathy capacity. So I'm working on a lot of the mama heart stuff. And it's very heavy. It's very deep. But I resonate when I used to sit inside a suicide cell in what's called a turtle suit, which is barely anything. I ate off paper. There were certain places where you use the restroom, and I remember only hearing like my own screams against a white wall. Because when you're put inside, like, people don't care. You're just a number. Your body. You're another product of monetary things for the county to have. And I was like, God, I'm done. And he's like, that's cute. I'm not done with you. And I was like, you need to fix it because I'm spent. So he did. And I still buck a lot, but I have come to understand there is so much that happens to us that we don't take care of, meaning women especially, mothers. And if we're not taking that time, I feel like as I'm in the community, there's a lot of things that can be done. So we try to reflect on a lot of the capacities that we're not able to create. And so I try to be in the community with my moms and my female vets, and I call them my tribe, just to show them like, hey, and they're like, you're so weird. Like, why do you ask me if I drink water? Like, why do you ask me if I eat? I'm like, because have you? Like, I know you didn't sleep. I mean, I'm seeing you. I love you. You're beautiful. But you're toting a kid. You're yelling at a kid. You're trying to be in school. Like, what do you eat? And we try to get on this level, meaning like other female vets and spouses, to say, hey, how can we help? But when we ask the question, they're not prepared for it, which I wasn't. Like, how am I helping myself to help others?
Yeah.
And so I maintain boundaries. I put my phone on D&D. If I don't have it, I'm like, hey, I can't come today, because a lot of what I do is volunteer.
Right.
I'm blessed financially to balance like my books and to have some to move with. And the organizations are great. So between MVPN, Shine Moms, and working with the Belief Center, these platforms get to grow, and I get to do it with them and help build it. And we've started the first female social organization for female vets here in East Texas.
Wow.
So we're excited. And it's only because we have faced so much, we're not included. So it kind of goes back to the veteran community. And I love that people want to reach out. I love that people want to support Tyler as a quote unquote veteran friendly city. But that looks so different to so many people. It's a great retirement community. It's a great way to name streets and do all these things. But we're not talking about how many more we're losing. Texas has a higher suicide
rate
than the national average.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, females are, I think it's 87% higher to have a relapse, a substance problem, suicidal attempts, because they don't know how to deal with things. And it's not because they're not trying, it's because they don't have the resources, they don't have the patience or the time. So it can be a damning situation. So what we're trying to do is rewrite that narrative and create that bridge, because one thing I learned, and I would tell people, and I continue to, that sit on boards in the community and chamber, is you can't do what we do because you're not who we are. And I mean is you can't give me what I need unless you're listening to what I'm telling you I can't handle.
Yeah.
So writing someone's story for them or trying to finish their narrative, you can't really do that. That's not fair. You have to look at the situations as they are, and like, how do you move that? So the money's great to be thrown at. Like, people love money being thrown at you, right? Like, yeah, take it, whatever you need. But look at what you're investing in. Like, come watch a single mom, a single female combat vet, like, get a break. Or not even a combat vet, just a female veteran. Or a female that's coming out of the military. Or a spouse that's been a caregiver for her husband. Or is balancing all these things. And you come see them have like a mom day, like a spa day, or they get to learn about the mechanics in their car. Like, never knew how to change my own tire, right? Being pretty has its advantages, but we want to teach this community the cultural competency that it takes to understand what you're feeding your finances into, and to help them reflect and understand that, yes, there are sacrifices that have been made. Yes, there are people that go and they enlist and they do these amazing things for this country. But when we come home or sat down like I was, meaning I didn't get a choice. I mean, yes, I had a choice, but I would never give up my daughter. But the things that it takes from us, sometimes we don't even realize, either one, before it's too late, or two, before we're too deep in how do we get out. So it just goes to show the platforms that we share. It's not about who gets the money first. It's about how are we creating as a whole in this community? Because if you go 45 minutes down the road to Longview, they don't have half of what we have here. They do not. So there is just such a culture shock in just a short drive. And it's like, it is so pretty and it's so delicate, and it's great to have this flourishment of what we want to do here in East Texas. But East Texas is so vast and kind of late in the game. But you see all this development happening, you see all this money being thrown around, and it's like, you're really not listening to what we're saying if you really want to help. So, like the mental health, the MST, the substance problems, the suicidal rate, and how to change it, you can't just throw money at it. Just like if you're going to fix a marriage and you go to counseling, you have to do the work. Just like dieting, I'm working on it. I don't like the gym, but it's one of those things. If I want to be healthy at my age, because being 40 and as you grow, apparently as women, it doesn't get like better for us. We have to make it better, right? Whereas the men, they get to age like fine wine.
Yes.
And I don't know about you, but my genes on both sides of my family, we're gonna have to work a little harder. But it just, there's so many great things. And sometimes I feel like some of the nonprofits and the businesses have lost sight of the mission. And in the military, that's one of the key things you have to know. What is the mission? And we miss it. And even when it's brought back and it's like, hey, you have a responsibility because you've been given a gift, whether that's a successful business, a way to mentor, a way to have a nonprofit, and to say, hey, we want to help serve the veteran community. If you're going to serve the community, make sure you're looking at all parts of it. It's not just the males. It's not just the retired ones that invest in your golf courses and your country clubs. It's not what can they do for us. It's what are we not doing for them? And you have to bridge that gap and like stop being deaf, stop being silent. And so I only come out and say these things because I've had people in the community try to use my background against me. I've had people say, you know, I think sitting down and shutting up would probably be better for you. And I'm like, that's cute. That's so cute. Like you, I don't know what side of the kingdom you think I'm coming from, but I want to pray for that. So it just, it's just always been a hush. And so closed mouths don't get fed, and deaf ears don't listen unless you can turn up the volume. So I guess that's really what I'm throwing to do in this community. And people with passion, sometimes the community is not ready to receive. But as long as we know what we're goal-oriented to do, the experience that we bring to it, the journey that we've lived and are living, I can tell you first and foremost, like, this is why East Texas, I know God, nothing God does is, you know, by coincidence.
No.
And this community is like, God's like, look, I gave you gifts on gifts on gifts. I let you know. I gave you this, and I need your purpose to start following through. And I was like, but it's so cute. You know, just go shopping.
Yeah.
You're going to go help the people.
No, yeah.
So,
I gave you the gift. Start doing the work. Start doing the work.
Yeah. So
you're doing a lot of work.
It is. It's a lot, but it's not without having capacity. I don't do it without the team behind me, though.
Yeah.
This isn't a one-woman show. This is just, I'm bringing you my lived experience to tell you it's cute what you're trying to do. And I love that you want to have, you know, purpose in this place, but please know what you're doing it for and who, because every vet is different. Every spouse is different. Every military member, meaning still serving or coming out. Yeah. They're different. Our stories look very different from these younger women that are coming out. And the younger families, it's just, there's so much that encompasses it. It's not just a male vet. It's not just a paycheck in retirement. Like, you've got to get into the grit. Yeah. And it's not just picking and choosing the stories either. No. Because they look good on KETK or CBS 19. That's great. But you've really got to start telling the story. You got to say, hey, you know what? Maybe we didn't approach this the best way, but let's look at it. Let's look at all the stories and how do we invest in those? And I think what's woven into East Texas is it's so beautiful. And please nothing I say takes away from like the neighborly approach. And so that's where, when I say I've had people that have told me, you know, maybe sitting down would be the best option, or not speaking about this, or that's a little, I'm like, you're right. It's exactly what it is. It's messy. It's gross. It's ugly.
It's uncomfortable.
And very uncomfortable. And so
makes people uncomfortable to have these hard conversations.
really, and it's just like, you know what? I'm like, I get up every day, I fight with my spanks, but I choose to wear buttons because I want to, right? And some days when people look and the one thing is they don't know how to receive, just like people with compliments or, money, or it's like, I don't know if I can do that. It
makes them uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Yes.
So these moving pieces that we are, the community's got, not just the community, the elders got to get on board.
Yeah.
You've got to understand you're growing a city in this place and you want it to do so many things, but in an instant it can crumble with the realization of what's underneath it.
Yes.
And whose backs you built it on.
Yeah.
And it's like, stop taking just like when people read scripture, you can't just take apart from the passage and say, oh, this is what we're going with. You've got to include everything that comes with it.
Yes.
Because you're never going to grasp what God's word is trying to do or what he says when you're the one picking the pieces. Believe me, I've done it. I'm still very guilty of it. But when I get in my word and when I sit and I talk to people and you learn how to evaluate and not judge people or write their stories or like, oh, bless your heart mentality, but like, yeah, that's a lot. But how do we include that to help recreate this quote of East Texas?
Yes.
And how do we bring the old skills to the new skills and the way that life thrives and it moves so fast? But you can't forget people and who they are and where they've come from just because it's not something that makes you comfortable.
Yeah.
So get uncomfortable. Try it on your saints. Go to your workout classes.
Yeah.
But just because you sit in a place that you may not have experienced half of what someone else has, it doesn't mean that you don't have half of what you can give back to them.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that's listening, being a shoulder, giving somebody a second chance. I have so many vets and people that walk out of either county jail, prison, they're coming back from something. You've got to start opening doors to help people create their lives. You can't just keep doing the same rotation of system. You can't keep.
It's not working.
It doesn't.
It's not working. It hasn't worked in a really long time.
And that's why, Salvation Army sits at capacity. And we look at other, East Texas Crisis Center, they get at full capacity. We have such a huge navigational problem some days because it's like, who are we giving the steering wheel today? How about we just look at the full land navigation and we say, hey, these are the opportunities we have here. And start having the conversations and start making the decisions together and not just with the ones that have been here for 30, 40 plus years. Because if you've done great foundation work, just help it grow.
Yeah.
And stop cutting people short on the lives that they can continue to live. It's such a great place like East Texas.
It is a fantastic place. It really is.
It's just, but it's such a great life. I love my life, even with its, I have mental health days. If you're like, hey, are you coming? I'm like, no, I can't be here today. But I'm blessed. And if this is where that goes, then these are the things and show up and we talk, then let's talk. Because there's nothing on the table. There's nothing in my record. There's nothing that you can tell me that God has either forgiven, blessed, and moved forward. Or he's like, hey, that was a bad part. It's cool. You don't have to bring that up to her anymore. Because you can't convince me otherwise.
Yeah.
You can't live my life and try to change how I feel about myself. Because I promise you, I've done the work and I'm continuing to do.
Yeah. All of the thoughts that you're having about me, I've already had them a time or two.
So July of 2023, I had that conversation with myself. We had beef chicken that day, and it was like great F meat. So really what I'm chewing on here, I hit it. And it's, and I have some females that are where I was, and they say, I can't do this. And I have to get very real with them and say, this is your choice. These are your kids. Either you're going to continue to do A, B, and C, or you can flip it and start doing 1, 2, and 3 because you're on a thin line.
Yeah.
Same with other veterans and spouses, but just people in humanity. Because like I said, I just got my humanity back and started living my life. And not when I say for me, but like for the purposes that I was created for. And we all have them. But you have to give people the chance and the ability to see who they are without breaking them with who they were. Mm-hmm. And I love when people are trying to do that for me. Because you can't fix people.
No.
You can't save them. You can only pray for them. You can continue to be there with them. But don't lose sight of what is so good about this life. And if you're struggling with it, it's hard to reach for help. It's hard to say something, but take care of yourself, because in the end of it, there are people here that love you. And if you don't feel like there are, I promise you there's a God that does. And I've fought with that man and that entity, all the things. I still do it. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that today. Like when he sat down to the male prison, I was like, no, not doing that. And sure enough, now it's like, what's up, Starkey? Like, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, weren't you in a prison? And I was like, sure was. It wasn't this nice, but yes. And so I've loved my life experience. And people always ask me, do you regret anything? I don't regret anything. I used to, but I don't anymore. Everything fell into place the way it was supposed to. And from a suicide sex cell to where I sit and speak with you now, life is so beautiful. It is tragic. It is messy. It is hurtful. And I would not change anything up till now. And I only look forward to what comes, whether that be good, bad, or indifferent, or beautiful grace and having discernment to navigate it with what's happened. And so there are going to be more tragedies in my story. But that's the thing. It's not really just my story. It's those around me too. It's God's purpose. It's, I have a 15-year-old that's navigating life and she knows all the things. And I'm like, God, you're so much like me. And even though we're working on that relationship, and not having it for so long, it's heartbreaking. But again, I had a hand in what happened. Not all of it, but I will never quit fighting for her. And whether that looks like taking a step back till she's ready, or saying, hey, just because I'm not there doesn't mean I'm not serious parent. And so you don't quit on people. You don't quit on yourself. And don't quit on what's best about you. And for me, that's just, it's showing up. And it's like, oh, I don't want to talk about it. Or yeah, let's talk about that. Or how do I listen? That's probably one of my biggest opportunities. And when people say, well, what are your strengths and weaknesses? I'm like, well, I have strengths and I have opportunities, because language is everything, right? And so the ability to grow those opportunities and fully gain strength, that's why I work with different parts of the community and organizations, especially those that are really trying to get boots on the ground mentality, be in our community, and have those conversations with real experience, not just a checkbook. But we have a duty and a responsibility to keep our vets and what they come with protected. And for me, that's my female vets and spouses. And
that's your mission.
It is. And I'm not going to quit with advocacy and platforms. They're messy and they can be intertwined, but with female vets, especially, it's not hard to see. It just has to be broken down to a point where people can recognize they are women, they are mothers, they are fighters, but how can we help them help themselves so that they can thrive with those around them? And that's my biggest thing, because I didn't have it when I came out until I found the women that are now part of my tribe and mentors, whether it's military or civilian. And I have a good group of both. So I even have a mom mentor, and I was like, I would never have a mom mentor. Too good.
I think we all need those.
Right? And now I have, I'm sure she don't mind, but Brandy Stevens over at Marvin Methodist, she's a pastor there. But she did, and she continues to show. And it's like, hey, maybe. Or she'll tell me, get in your word, or I feel your mom heart. And at first she couldn't tell me anything. Like when people were like, oh, no, you feel. That's one of the biggest pet peeves for me. I'm like, oh, so you been shot at, you've been to prison, you've lost your whole life. Oh no, but I watched a Netflix movie and I'm like, no. So here's what's gonna happen. But it's just, that's the full encompassment of how East Texas has shaped my life. Whether it's Tyler, Brownsboro, and they have grown their acreage for land, by the way, where the high school and things are. It just, it's such a deep part. And now that my daughter is experiencing East Texas, where she is in the Longview area, I never knew life could be so complicated for our teenagers or our kids.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God, I miss not having a cell phone. So I try to take in everything that I've lived from the moment I hit Tyler back in 2003 to 2004-ish and then on. So these are where my roots are. I'm just
Shannon, your story is amazing, beyond amazing. And when I got your email and I read through, I was like, oh, okay, this is gonna be pretty cool. This is gonna be pretty awesome. I'm gonna enjoy this one. And I mean, I've enjoyed every interview that I've had, but by far, holy cow, in the best ways. In the best ways, because I don't even know how to preface it with words, because I never thought in a million years that my senior project would turn into such an amazing gift, not just for myself, but for our community members. And it just was, it was not on the list. It was not on my 2026 bingo card. It was not on my list.
I love those, right?
It wasn't so quickly. It did. And I am ever so grateful for you sharing your story with us. And I hope that we can sit down again and talk about some of these organizations that you work with specifically. I really do think that this platform was created so that the community can better understand and help one another, because East Texas is amazing at lending a hand or getting a checkbook out, but I think they lose sight of some of that mission, like you said, and that story behind the why they're doing things. And I think this would be a great platform to be able to get those voices out and get that story heard. Yeah.
And like I said, the social organization is East Texas Female Veteran Warriors. We won't last on there very long, and still very much in its infancy. But again, it's not that people don't want to help. They sometimes they really don't know how.
Yeah.
And when organizations have attempted, again, it has always stopped at the good old boy club almost.
Yeah.
And in creating and trying to establish, and these people asked for input. They're like, how can we help? What can we do? Like, you wanted the research and the knowledge and the boots on the ground from my life and these other ones, but then you completely shut it down. You destroyed something before it could begin.
Yeah.
And that's what really made me angry.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm done listening. I'm done trying to help you think you can navigate my story and those beside me, because I'm just the tip of the iceberg. I have so many amazing women that I call friends and sisters that their lives have been, like,
forever
8
changed.
brain surgeries, like
Yeah.
one fighting for a kid while she's in active duty and trying to like be this great mom. Just so many. But then on the flip side also, like, I can tell you some of the most amazing women that hold high positions in this community are female vets.
It's amazing.
So there's just so much that we got to quit destroying before we create it. Just because you don't think it's not necessary, because you think, oh, women, here we go again. Like, here's this, here's that. We have a place and we wear the same uniform as well. And with respect to the same check that would be cashed, it has been on multiple times in each branch. It takes no different place than what a man can do. And I think we lose that. And whenever it's come to the story of how do we help serve, don't ask the questions if you don't want the answers. Because I promise you, they're a lot more loaded than people are able to
get
receive.
ready to be uncomfortable.
Exactly.
And that's the only way we're going to grow, is if we get uncomfortable. So get ready, everybody. Let's get uncomfortable for a while.
If you're going to sleep on an air mattress for a while, it's going to bounce you every which way. You'll get a verbal mattress somewhere. But it's too important. I've lost too many people. I've almost lost myself.
Yes.
To demons I didn't know I was dancing with, to conversations in my head about combat. And, military sexual trauma is not something to keep quiet about.
No.
But when people are ready to share or just need somewhere to go to talk, they should have that ability, whether it's male or female. But we're not creating enough spaces, and the ones that we do have are being polluted and being put with toxins from this community and the people in it that serve in higher positions or have the most money. And unfortunately, that is not how this is supposed to be.
No, we need to listen.
And
we need to listen. I'm ready to listen. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And it's been an honor, and I really appreciate you taking the time to listen, because part of the story or the testimony is it's hard to share. It's hard to say, people are like, oh my God, you have a felony record. I'm like, why is that so? But then I get it, because I at once thought on my own soapbox, then you can't touch me. Like, I'm a vet. We're never going to prison. Texas is like, that's cute. Get her on the bus. And I did. I was humbled very quickly. And I lost so much in a fight that I didn't know how to win.
Yeah.
Whether it was mental health or substance or suicidal things, but I continue to fight because I'm
grateful. I'm grateful that you continued to fight. I'm grateful that you got to, you're here and you're able to sit down with us. And I can't thank you enough for sharing all of this with us and being ready.
Yeah, it's cool.
To dive down that rabbit hole. And it's a messy one, but
it's a lot. I mean, I love it. And people are like, you get so hyped about prison and your record. And I'm like, yeah, but you gotta see, that's where I was, right? And I'll show them the picture and they're like, oh my God.
The growth.
But look at what I'm
showered.
Yeah. I don't need to share showers. I'm like, I promise you. That's the other thing. Like, the resources that the VA does have to help you when you're out or you're homeless or you're broke, like, they are there. There are parts of the VA that are good.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's okay. Like, we can talk about
yeah.
You can talk about my uncomfortable because I'm comfortable with it.
Yes. Yeah.
And you were like, what? It's just a whole thing. So I'm excited for this next chapter and what 2027.
Yes.
2026 is kind of already like mapped, but what road we take to get there, I'm like, okay, God. I know we've talked about surrender, but can we use like a chat GPT? No, I got it. So all of the navigational tools, I really, really try to let him keep.
Yeah.
Because I do not want to have a God complex in a story that he has given me to write. So,
that's amazing. Yeah.
And I really appreciate you taking the time to listen and facilitate.
Thank you, Shannon. And thank you to our listeners for listening in today. We appreciate it.
As we wrap up today's episode, I want to thank Shannon Starkey for sharing her story with honesty, humility, and courage. Shannon's journey reminds us that our lives are rarely defined by a single moment, a single mistake, or even a single chapter. From military service and motherhood to addiction, incarceration, recovery, and advocacy, her story is a powerful testament to resilience, accountability, faith, and the strength it takes to keep moving forward when everything seems so lost. Here in East Texas, we often celebrate successes, but sometimes the stories that matter the most are the ones about rebuilding. The story about getting back up after life has knocked you down. The story about choosing hope when it's easier to just give up. Today, Shannon continues to serve others by advocating for vets, supporting women in crisis, and helping people find their way through some of life's hardest battles. Her message is simple, but powerful. No matter where you've been, your story isn't over. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Voices of East Texas. If Shannon's story has touched your heart, challenged your perspective, or reminded you of someone you love, we encourage you to share this episode with others. Because every voice has a story, and every story matters. Until next time, I'm Elena, and this has been the Voices of East Texas. We'll see you down the road.